Hello and welcome everyone, it is Flame once again from Team Legends and welcome back to another deck discussion video. Continuing from where we left off in the last video, we will be sticking with the theme of Hunter x Hunter for our early deck discussion analysis, and we'll be sticking with the same color of green as there's another green deck that deserves its time and recognition. As always, feel free to leave a like and a comment down below if you enjoy the video, and without further ado, I introduce to you Green Kurapika. Green Kurapika was one of the first meta-defining decks when the game was released in the United States back in October of 2024. This deck alongside blue Yuji Sukuna was one of the most powerful decks in the format and was always seen success at the top tables throughout any competitive events. The reason that this deck alongside blue JJK was as powerful as it was is because it was able to take advantage of a little used game mechanic that other decks didn't have access to, and that of course was Snipe. The ability to take out any character you choose through the action of battle. As usual, we'll be breaking down the card by card, going over the reasoning for every card's inclusion in this deck. Starting things off, of course, is 4 copies of the 0-1 Kurapika, the baby raid target of the deck. Not really much has to be said for the reasoning for 4 in this deck, just that you want to see as many of them as possible, and the fact that you will be able to play it off of a green colored trigger at any point in time is still very good. Alongside the 0-1 Kurapika, you will want to play 4 copies of the 0-1 Zepio. Similar to what we talked about back in the Green Buddies video, the 0-1 Zepio should be a mandatory 4-of in the deck, specifically because of the fact he is a draw discard on a draw trigger. These triggers were very hard to come by back in the early states of the game, and is still one of the few draw discards with a good trigger in the Hunter x Hunter deck, so he remains in the deck at 4 copies. Rounding out our zeros, we are going to be playing 3 copies of the 0-1 Mito, which really hasn't seen a lot of playtime in any of the decks, but with the inclusion of Volume 2, has started to see just a little bit more playtime, especially in the Green Kurapika deck. This 0-1 Mito or the 0-1 Satos are usually the final zeros that make up the Kurapika deck. We will be playing the Mito over the Satos, specifically because of the fact that she has a good active trigger and is also a very good hit off of a green color that in combat, when you play her on the field, you can give anything an 1,000-point boost, as well as play her to the front line to be a blockable body that can just tank any hit coming your way and spare yourself a life. Moving out of the zeros, we will be talking about the 1s in the deck. There are going to be 6 1s played, 3 copies of each card. First one, of course, being 3 of the 1-1 Melody. She generates energy even if she's on the front line, as well as being an active trigger, so regardless of where she is, you play her off of a green color trigger, you trip her out of life, and you can just play her to the field. She'll always have her value. Next up is the first inclusion of our brand new cards that were released in Hunter x Hunter Volume 2, and it will be 3 copies of the 1-1 Kurapika. The inclusion of this 1-1 card in the deck is done so for a multitude of reasons. First, of course, being the fact it is a 1-1, so it is able to build your board early on and get you up to the required 7 energy you need. Another reason this card is included is because of the fact it is a draw trigger, which was something that the deck did not have access to back in the original Wave 1. The only other draw trigger in the deck was the 0-1 Zepio, so the fact that you are able to get 3 more in your deck means if you take damage and hit this card out of life, you will be able to thin through your deck just a little bit faster than you were able to back when this deck first came out. Finally, there's another raid target in the deck alongside of the 0-1 Kurapika. You will feel no remorse dropping a raid on top of this card, specifically because of the fact it has no other effect. Moving away from the 0 and 1 counts, we are going to be playing 11 zeros and 6 1s, which makes for a total of 17 cards under 2, which is about standard. We now move on to the 2-cost cards in the deck, and we are only going to be playing 2 of them. It, of course, is 2 copies of the 2-1 Kurapika. This Kurapika, alongside a lot of the other ones, has a good active trigger and is also a 3,000 body on a 2-1, which can be very powerful in the early game stages. On top of his ability that if you have another character with 5,000 or more BP on your field, he does gain impact. This card being only a 3,000 impact won't exactly scare your opponent as much, but it does have its uses in late game stages, as at any point you drop a Raid Kurapika on your board with 5,000 base BP, this card automatically becomes live and will be an impact on your next turn. Next up, we will be moving into our 3-cost cards of the deck, and this is where a lot of the double energy generation needed to get up to 7 energy is going to be. Leading things off, of course, with 2 copies of the 3-1 Kurapika. This card's inclusion in the deck is usually fluctuating between 2 to 4 copies, and in this instance, we will be landing on just 2. The fact that it is a double energy generator on a 3 and it is a Kurapika by name already puts it at a very good standing in the deck. Also that if you are generating 6 or more energy, he gains 1000 BP permanently to become a 4000 body. Another one of the double energy generators we will be playing this deck is 4 copies of the 3-1 Basho. This card has earned its spot as a 4 in the deck because of the fact it is a much needed double energy generator as well as having a good active trigger. On top of that, the card also has Step, the ability to move during movement phase from the front line back to the energy line, meaning Basho can be played on the front line earlier on in the game, and at any point you need to generate more energy, you can simply step him back, and you will already have 2 more energy generating because of the fact he will be moved to your energy line. Going a little bit out of order here, we will be going over the last of the double energy generators in the deck, and this is going to be 4 copies of the 5-2 Neon. Although the card does not have a trigger and requires 2 action to play, the ability it brings to the table warrants it to be played at 4 copies. When this card is played, you can look at the top 4 cards of your deck and you reveal any one character of those 4 cards and add it to your hand. Then if the revealed card only has 1 action cost and you have the required energy to play it, you can play it to your field set active or perform raid with it instead of adding it to your hand. This card is very powerful for the deck as you can play any card in your deck to your field active as long as it is not another Neon. This means that you are able to play any one of your powerful Kurapikas straight to your frontline active or even the raid if you are lucky enough to find it. Overall, very solid card, deserves to be at 4 as soon as it is played, it can swing the entire course of the battle in your favor. Moving on now to the cards that are going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting, the big impact swingers for the deck. Starting things off, of course, is 4 copies of the 5-1 color Kurapika. This card, of course, being the color means it should be played at 4 copies in the deck, and as well as its ability that, likewise to the 3-1 double energy generator, gets an ability if you are generating 6 or more energy. This character gains impact if you have met those requirements. On top of the fact, its when played and when attacking ability allows you to look at the top card of your deck and leave it on the top or bottom of the deck. Before, this card's when played ability was only used if you were planning on dropping the 5-2 Neon on the very same turn, as you could sculpt your deck to get a more ideal card to be drawn off the Neon. If you didn't like the first card that was going to be drawn, you could put it on the bottom of the deck and you can go another 4 cards deep, so essentially 5 deep into your deck off the Neon search. This card's impact in the deck, however, became a lot more powerful with the release of Hunter x Hunter Volume 2, as we got a brand new card in that set that would utilize this card's ability to its fullest, as not only it was when played, but also when attacking. That card, of course, being the brand new 4-1 Kurapika. When Hunter x Hunter Volume 2 was announced for the United States, we basically knew every card that was going to be coming over in the set, as Japan had already had access to the entire set for the few months prior. That being said, the inclusion of this card in the set shocked everyone, as it was one of the 4 cards that was released exclusively to the English version. The other 3 cards joining the Kurapika, of course, being the 2-1 Color Gone for the specified slot deck, the 1-1 Illumi for the Zoldyck family deck, and the 3-1 double energy generating Killua for the brand new yellow dodgeball deck. This character does functionally the same thing as the Melody, as if you place 1 card from your hand into the sideline during the main once per turn, the character generates energy even if it is sitting on the front line. The ability that you are able to play this card on the board being only 4 required energy means that you are able to put more aggressive bodies and faster energy generation on the board than the deck was currently capable of doing. On top of the fact that if you are generating 6 or more energy at the time, you can draw 1 card when this card attacks. This card gave a brand new use for the aforementioned color Kurapika, as when attacking you were able to sculpt the next card of your deck, but you weren't necessarily allowed to do anything with it until now. If you were to attack with the color Kurapika first and look at the next card on the top of your deck, you could then follow that up by swinging with this 4-1 Kurapika to draw the very same card that you just saw on the top of your deck to get more advantage in your hand. Finally, we will be talking about this little beauty in the deck, 1 copy of the 4-1 Leorio. The inclusion of this Leorio card in the deck has always been a discussion whenever anyone is building a green Kurapika deck, as it has usually been changed out with either itself in the deck, a 5-1 Hisoka in the deck, or even a Hanzo that a lot of people have tried back in the early stages of the game. This card's ability allows it to once per turn when it attacks and is not blocked, you are allowed to draw a card. He also has an ability that if you pay an AP, you are able to give him 1500 BP and impact until the end of the turn. Play that in tandem with his ability that when he attacks and is not blocked, you're able to draw a card. Unless your opponent has Nullify Impact on the board, you are going to be getting a guaranteed swing for 1 damage, as well as being able to draw a card. Personally, I think only one copy is necessary in the deck. If you find him off of the 5/2 Neon, you can simply play him to your board active, and if you want to use your last AP to give him that impact, you're more than welcome to do so. Otherwise, if you don't find him, it's not the biggest detriment to your deck. The final character in our deck is, of course, the main focus of the deck in the big power swing in the 7/1 Raid Kurapika. This card was a massive game changer whenever it hit the board at any point throughout the game. Also, the card's when played ability was very versatile whenever you found it. When played, you could choose one of the following two effects. You can either choose up to one character in an opponent's front line and switch to resting, or you can give the character Snipe the ability to take out any character in battle until the end of the turn. If you were able to find this card off of the 5/2 Neon, you were able to utilize its second ability to give the character the offensive Snipe, meaning you could take out any character of your choosing through combat, as well as dealing a damage with the already impact on the card. If you were able to find this card on a life trigger, however, you can play it to the field and utilize its first ability to switch a card on your opponent's front line resting, thus taking away its ability to battle, and also being a 5,000 blocker on the turn. Even to this day, there are people still out there trying to utilize the Kurapika to its fullest ability, as giving a character Snipe on a 5,000 impact and a 7-cost raid is still very powerful in today's meta. One of the last cards to discuss, of course, is the special for the deck, the Emperor Time Absolute Mastery. This card, when it was released, was one of the first specials in the game that did something a little bit more unconventional and did not focus on solely removing a card, but instead gave a boost to your Kurapikas when they attacked. The card reads as follows: that you choose one character on your field, it gains 3,000 BP, and when this character attacks and wins a battle, you are allowed to draw a card until the end of the turn. If you specifically chose Kurapika through this card's effect, you would also give the Kurapika the ability of Snipe until the end of the turn. This card meant that when played on top of any Kurapika except for the 0/1 Kurapika, it would make it easily over 5,000 BP, and with the ability of Snipe meant that it could take out any character of their choosing. When played on top of certain cards such as the 2/1 Kurapika, the 5/1 Color Kurapika, or even the Raid Kurapika, you would also be given it the ability of Impact and guaranteeing them 1 damage along with taking out a character of their choice. This card's inclusion in the deck meant that a lot of people had to play differently when it came to facing off against Kurapika, as they had to preserve their characters as much as possible, as if Emperor Time hit the board at any point, they were going to be guaranteed losing a character, and they hopefully didn't want to lose one of their big swinging bodies. Last card in the deck, of course, 4 copies of Hunter License, your AP Flipper, your final, whatever you want to call it, at 4 of in the deck. You want to have this as much as possible just because of the fact you are playing the Neon in the deck, which is a 2 AP cost. So the ability to play her on the board, then flip your AP back active with Hunter License, meant that you were able to swing a little bit more aggressively and put more bodies on your front line. So once again, here's a full breakdown of the deck and the card-by-card ratio, and we'll see how we do. We now turn our attention back to the Wheel of Union Arena decks to find out our first round opponent. It is worth mentioning that at the time of recording this video, the set That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime was not available for playtesting and thus is not on the wheel. However, it will be available and on the wheel for future videos. It looks like our first round opponent will be the Mitsuri Kanroji deck from Demon Slayer, one of the brand new blue decks that we got in Volume 2 set, alongside Blue Tanjiro and Blue Muichiro. This deck is going to be the pure version of the Kanroji build. Most decks tend to mash it together with a Muichiro or use her as an engine in the Blue Tanjiro deck, but the wheel choice has said that it will be the pure version of Kanroji, and so that's what we're going to have to face off against in our opening round. Already winning the die roll and getting the opening move is exactly what this deck wanted, but not a very fortuitous hand to be starting off with. A couple finals and playing the Kurapika on the energy line to start things off. Obviously, Kanroji is a deck that will go a lot faster than Kurapika, only needing to get up to 5 required energy instead of Kurapika having to get up to 7. Taking the extra draw and only playing 1 card on the back row is going to allow for a wide open swing for Kanroji, and she does just that. Playing the Nichiren Blade on the back row, give an extra BP boost. Not really affected by any colors or anything that would be hit out of life, as that Kanroji does have a when sideline effect, but obviously not seeing it here. Another extra draw, drawing Zepio off the top should help get us out of this slump. Having to use a Hunter License, that's already 2 in the sideline. And going to play the Kurapika on the front line, a 4,000 blocker, which should be enough to handle the Kanroji to keep her from swinging. The Nichiren Blade, of course, can get the Kanroji up to 4,000 BP by pitching a card, but it looks like the Raid Kanroji is all they're going to need in order to bounce it back to our hand mandatorily. It is our choice of any frontline character, but of course with only the 1 Kurapika on our front line, the choice is very simple. already taking an early 3 damage from Kanroji and set on the back foot very quickly. This is a problem that a lot of tall decks have against decks that don't necessarily need to get that much energy. Kanroji, obviously, of course, only having to get up to a maximum of 5 required energy, can go a lot quicker than a deck that needs to get up to the required 7. We do have some cards that can generate energy on the front line, and we're doing just that with the Melody and the brand new Kurapika to be generating 5 energy with only 3 cards on the back row. And we're going to go ahead and play the color Kurapika on the front line to sculpt the top card of our deck. Mito on the top is not necessarily what we need in terms of power. It would just be an extra body to try and boost for 1000 BP, but no swings are going to be getting on Kanroji here for this turn. But we have been able to wall up on the front line to keep ourselves just a little bit safer. 2 4000s. The Zepio and the Melody should stall the Kanroji for a while, unless exactly that happens. Another raid dropping on the board, choosing to bounce the Zepio back to the hand to get an extra draw discard. Double Nichiren Blade to pump both the Kanrojis up by 1000, and it's going to be just that. And not deciding to use the Kanroji's ability when battling will give another character on the field 1000 BP. We did go back after this game was over and discussed if that would have made much of a difference, and honestly, in this point, it's not really been the case, as an overwhelming life advantage, 7 to now 2 life remaining on the early swings, and a full front line of Kanrojis versus Kurapika, generating 4, now 5 energy, pitching off that Zepio, and there's the Neon that we needed to get this game back in our favor, trying to get a good swing, but nothing good off the top. 3 zeros and a special, and we'll have to be forced to play the Zepio to try and get a draw discard with our last action point on the field. And what will it be to try and get out of this mess? It'll be to play the Raid Kurapika, as we are generating enough energy over the Melody, and we'll give the Kurapika the ability of Snipe and Impact. The problem is that the cards that you want to take out here in either one of the Raid Kanrojis both have Nullify Impact on them. And because of that, even if you do snipe with Impact, you aren't going to be dealing any damage because of the fact of Nullify Impact. Have the Kurapika swinging will be blocked off by the Kanroji, as when she is targeted with a Nichiren Blade, her BP effect lasts permanently, at least until the start of the opponent's next turn. So she can be a 5000 swing on your turn and a 5000 blocker on the following turn. You're going to see the 4-1 Kanroji play on the front line, that if she's targeted with a Nichiren Blade, it will be giving her damage 2, and a Love Breathing special card to bounce the Kurapika back to the hand. Will also give the Kanroji the ability of Impact and boosting through the 2 Nichiren Blades as well. 2 Hagenezka sitting on the back row, and a front line full of Kanrojis. A green color trigger for Kurapika out of the life, and nothing in hand to play. Swinging with the double block, will just be forced to block out, and last turn. Last turn, essentially, as we're down to 1 life to 6 on Kanroji. It is in this instance that a lot of free hits can be taken. Another Neon dropping. Can we get a little bit luckier here? Kind of. It's a Kurapika, not a 0 this time, but it's not going to be enough, as another Raid Kurapika drops down with Snipe as well. The sniping Kurapika will have to take out something that isn't the Raid, and we'll go after the one that could potentially get damage to and deal yet another damage. It'll be a Nezuko with a draw trigger. Kurapika swinging in to sculpt the top card will be blocked off by Kanroji. Impact will not get through, and so it is a pass. Last life remaining to try and preserve it against Kanroji. Extra draw taken. Do see a special in hand, and it is going to drop. Taking out the Kurapika, bouncing it back to the hand, giving the Kanroji the ability of Impact, making her big enough to hit over everything, swinging in for that last Impact, and that will do it for Game 1. See if we can get a better matchup for our second round. Not exactly the best of showings for the Kurapika deck in round 1 against Kanroji, and it might not look to be any better, as our second round opponent will be Red Chihiro from Kagurabachi. Similar to the Kanroji deck, the Chihiro deck wants to get going very quickly and doesn't have to get a lot of required energy to meet that threshold. The inherent difference between those decks, however, is Kanroji really hasn't seen any competitive meta success, that is, but Chihiro has, as it's been able to get at least a few tops in the last few tournaments that we've seen here in North America. It's been able to get at least in the top 8 to 16 a couple of times, hasn't won an event, at least at the major levels thus far, but I wouldn't be surprised to see at least a little bit more success the longer this deck is in the meta. Chihiro having to redraw here, but seeing a half-decent hand, except having to take the extra draw there for the opening turn is not exactly the best of showing, but it is fortunate for us as we do find a Zepio to draw discard, and also a Kurapika on the back row in passing turn. Chihiro did get unbricked and was able to find a 0-1 to draw discard. choices galore to pitch out of the hand, and usually it's going to be the Shiba that's going to get pitched to the sideline, and playing the 1-1 Hakuri on the back row, which gets a BP gain if it is on the same front line as either a Chihiro or a Shiba on the field. Not going to be doing much on the energy line now, as we're going to move Kurapika up to the front line, playing Melody and another Kurapika, taking the early damage and hitting an active trigger for absolutely no effect. This is what Kurapika wants to do, is to get that early swing and get the early pressure against the opponent, as keeping them off balance and keeping them without resources is definitely the strength of this deck in finishing the early games. The problem is that Chihiro is a deck that can rifle through its resources and generate numerous amounts of advantage through multiple draw discards, and the raid being a removal of it itself, either the raid Hakuri or the raid Chihiro whenever they hit the board. Already a full energy line for the Chihiro, and now it's our turn to try and bounce back here. Chance to move the Melody up to the front line, generate some energy while freeing up the back row to be allowed to play some double energy generators, and we do just that. And also moving the Zeppiel up as well, still generating 2 energy and trying to get early swings. Playing yet another Melody on the back row, as well as a Zeppiel to draw discard once again. You see the color Kurapika and a special in the hand that's going to be going away. Hunter License to play Kurapika, and then playing the frontline Kurapika to sculpt the top card of the deck. Lots of bodies on the board, trying to get early swings, and going to be able to get another one through. Hitting another active trigger that's obviously not going to be having any effect on this current board state, and passing turn. Yet another extra draw taken by Chihiro. There is a special and a final in the hand, moving both the Chihiro and the Hakuri up to the front line. Going to play Hinao to play and look at the top 4 of the deck, to try and sculpt the top card, leave one on the top and bottom the other 3. So we know that the Chihiro will be drawing into next turn. It's going to Enten Kuro out to the color Kurapika, and now we'll just simply go to combat, swinging with the 25 Chihiro first, taking our damage, but an active trigger will definitely preserve things. Checking the BP of 3,000, 3,000, and 3,000. I'm going to give the active trigger to the Kurapika, preserve its little bit of damage. And we'll pass turn. Things have evened up, taking 2 damage on both sides. The problem we face is trying to take out the numerous small bodies that have now littered the Chihiro field. And some of them not exactly the most dangerous cards to leave on the front line. Definitely don't want to leave the 2-1 Hakuri closest to the deck active, as any raid Hakuri that comes out will be able to get the free resources under that card. And playing a Neon, making sure we have the right energy, and see if we can hit anything better than the last game against Kanroji, with the Neon able to play anything as long as it is not another Neon. And we find Basho instead, which is definitely better, to say the least, as Basho will be a stepper, and at worst case scenario, we'll be able to move him back to the energy line and do some shenanigans with moving a Melody or even that other Kurapika up, if the place ever arrives. We're playing the Raid Chihiro. When choosing that, we're going to be pitching off the Chihiro and then using the Char effect to add the Chihiro back to the hand. It's going to Enten Kuro to out that Basho, and that's unfortunately what we really needed to get back in this game, was to get more energy generation. Hitting the draw Kurapika out of life. Of course, the other Kurapika popped when the Chihiro battled, pitching the card out of the hand, and a Neon in life, definitely not what we wanted to see. And once again, similar to the Kanroji, mass removal and constant pressure is something this deck really struggles with, as when the board gets broken, it's really hard to mount any sort of comeback, especially against a deck as fast as Chihiro. Are able to find the Raid Kurapika to give it the ability of snipe, and it's just going to be a choice to whether or not to snipe the Chihiro. Instead, we're going to go after the Hakuri, as Chihiro, after his 1-turn play, will not be able to pop anything, and it's going to be smaller than Kurapika, so that makes a free block. Problem is that Chihiro has another ability that, when pitching 3 cards out of the hand, is going to give him double attack. And a draw discard, pitching the Char away, adding it back off the Char. Char can recur herself or any Chihiro that is pitched off of a Chihiro ability. And at this point, we saw the writing on the wall, double attack incoming, and just scooped it up and move on to game 3. 2 losses through 2 rounds. Please, can we get a good matchup for our final round? And the final round matchup is going to be something we might be able to work with. Red Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho. This is a deck that is not a very quick deck, and kind of plays in its own unique style, having to play with very low resources, which is something that Kurapika would be more than happy to oblige to outblitz the deck. And it's not really exactly a very fortuitous strategy, as especially with one of the main power of the deck in the 5-2 Kurama that lets you draw up to 3 cards in your hand when played, and then having to pitch all the cards off if the Raid Kurama is going to drop at any point, either the 4-1 or the 6-1, to give the card bonus abilities. Both myself and my opponent having to get the redraws here and mulligan the opening hand. Did choose to go second for this time and see if we'll have any better luck after getting out-blitzed by Chihiro and Kanroji in the last 2 rounds. Opening up with double Kurapika against 1 Kurama. But what's 1 Kurama versus 2 and now 3 on the back row versus the Kurapikas? The solo names for the deck, it is going to be a pure Kurama versus this Kurapika. A lot of decks choose to play Kurama with a Hiei package as well from Yu Yu Hakusho, as the Hiei deck wants you to pitch a lot of cards out of the hand through event card use, and Kurama will be more than happy to utilize the low cards in hand. Playing Yukina looking for an event card. The usual only event cards that the Kurama deck plays is going to be either the special or the final, which the Yukina will allow you to add. Unfortunately, not finding that to be the case, and just passing turn after dealing 1 damage. And now we might actually see Kurapika get to do what we wanted it to do and what we hoped it could do this whole time, playing the color Kurapika on the back row, checking that top card, and obviously not wanting it, so we'll throw it back to the bottom of the deck, playing yet another melody on the front line. So we're generating now a total of 7 energy to raid the Kurapika as early as our 3rd turn, going to snipe the Kurama out of the way, and hitting an active trigger to boost the Yusuke up. Obviously not going to be able to get through with melody only having 1000 BP, but this is exactly what we wanted to with our play style, to get Kurapika early pressure, and having double melody on the front line means that we're generating a total of 6 energy right now with only 3 cards on the back row, one of them a double energy generator. Using the Kurama effect to pitch a card out of the hand to play the other Kurama we mentioned earlier that lets you draw a fresh hand of up to 3 cards if you have no other cards in hand when playing. Swinging 4,000, Kurama is going to get through, but hit a special, and that should take care of the Yusuke. Lady Luck on our side here for Game 3. Found another Raid Kurapika, and with a couple finals in hand, able to take that extra draw, try and get a little bit more pressure on the board. Debating on playing the new Kurapika, and we're going to play him on the back row, still generating 6 energy, now 7. Going to play the Hunter License, raid a Kurapika on the back row to get impact and snipe. So double impact and 5,000s on the front line, and we're going to Emperor Time the other one to give him the ability of snipe, essentially clearing up the entire front line. And a little bit of a misplay there to swing with the one boosted by Emperor Time first for risk of an active trigger. It would have been a little bit more detrimental, but hitting a red color is going to take care of one of our melodies. Still getting in special, or the Rose Whip Thorn Wheel will take care of the other Kurapikas. So some significant damage taken here for this turn. And now we can see if Kurama can bounce back from that as his raid hits the board, also getting the ability of snipe. Likewise to Kurapika, it's not exactly the easiest to get snipe. And another Rose Whip is going to take out our other raid Kurapika. Going to take out the melody, of course, with impact, and swinging in for a little bit more damage. It's actually feeling like a little bit closer game between these two decks. Kurama's not really seen any playability outside of it being just its own deck. Usually a hybrid was what we were expecting when Yu Yu Hakusho was announced to be one of the best decks coming out of Yu Yu Hakusho. Unfortunately, it was the Toguro deck was really the only one that saw any success come over here, as it's still seen somewhat playability, making at least top 64 for a couple of events. Finding a Leorio off the Neon, and unfortunately don't have the AP to give him his impact, and he's just going to get attacked and blocked, of course, with the raid Kurama on the front line. Still very back and forth here. Anyone's game. Another Kurapika dropping down, draws a fresh card. See a couple Yusuke's in hand, and I believe that is a Rose Whip. No, it's a final. It's going to get pitched off for the Kurama, and the Kurama will get impact, hitting an active Mito out of life. Should preserve the Kurapika, and it does. Going to be blocking that one. Kurama was pitched off, and so it is bigger than Leorio by pitching one card out of the hand. Gets up to 4,000, and should just pass turn, down to just 1 life for us, and 2 for Kurama on a very established board. Generating 6 energy to be the chance to move up the color Kurapika and also have the Leorio as well to get double impact. And if I'm not mistaken, we did draw into a Raid Kurapika as well, as we're just trying to find the necessary impact to end this game quickly without having to lose a lot of characters. Playing Kurapika on the back row after moving up, generate energy and making sure we have enough. It is going to raid the Kurapika. And choices to whether or not to play it on the front row or back row. When we choose to do it on the back row, and an Emperor Time Absolute Mastery to give the ability of Snipe on triple impact. Maybe could have used the last AP to do it on the Leorio instead to get a guaranteed impact. And we're choosing to just go around and take out as many as we can, sniping the raid, dealing the impact, getting a draw trigger. Now swinging the Leorio, get blocked out. Last impact to end the game. Will it be enough? And it is for Game 3. So here we are after our 3-round tournament, and honestly, a little disappointed with the results. Looking back, I know there were misplays on my part, so I can't fault the deck for that. I think the one win we got was a solid win, but the other two matchups never really gave the deck a chance to showcase what it was capable of. With all that said and done, we can now take an objective look at the pros and cons of the deck, starting, of course, with the pros. First, the deck has solid forms of removal. Without the conventional form of a removal card, you'd think the deck wouldn't be able to handle problem cards. However, Kurapika is allowed to utilize Snipe to its fullest potential and make any Kurapika on board a threat through the Emperor Time special, and the raid itself being Snipe on played is very powerful. Second, the deck can make use of very different powerful cards. While most decks in the game showcase the main power therein lies with the raids of the deck, Kurapika is a little bit different in the sense that it has multiple cards outside of the raid that can hold their own. Whether it's the Color Kurapika, the new 4-cost Kurapika, or even the Leorio itself being played off of the Neon, the deck can find power and impose a threat to board without needing any raids. And third, the deck can get to the required energy it needs quickly. With a lot of high energy cost decks in Union Arena, the biggest chore becomes making sure you're able to get to the required energy you need to play your big cards. This deck doesn't usually have that kind of problem, as there are multiple cards that let you manipulate how much energy you're generating with cards on the energy line as well as the front line. And now, of course, for the cons. First, it's a tall deck. As is the case for most tall decks in Union Arena, your deck is very matchup specific. Unless you are playing some of the newer tall decks in the game, like the Shadow Army deck from Solo Leveling, or even the Kaneki deck from Tokyo Ghoul, your deck is just going to crumble against any deck that is smaller and faster than it. Case in point, the Red Chihiro matchup was over very quickly because the deck was never given a chance to showcase what it can do and build a suitable board. Second, the deck doesn't have the greatest searching capabilities. Yes, you are allowed to draw cards off of the brand new Kurapika, and you're able to sculpt the top of your deck with the Color Kurapika, but outside of that, you are heavily reliant on the top deck alone. Unless you find exactly the Neon card, which is a gamble if you're going to find the card you're looking for in a 1 in 4 chance, you won't be able to find the key pieces you need. And even if you do find the Neon, it is still a 1 in 4 chance, and also she is a 2 AP cost card, which means you're going to be expending most of your resources in your turn just to play her. And third, the deck just can't go the distance. Long drawn-out games in Union Arena can really showcase the strengths and weaknesses of individual decks, and we saw just what Kurapika was capable of in the match against Kanroji. As the game went longer, the power of the deck dwindled and couldn't keep pace with the removal and the power that the Kanroji deck was putting up. Kurapika is a deck that wants to finish the game very quickly for that exact reason. By keeping the opponent without resources, the deck can be very overwhelming. But if you can't do that, it usually struggles to finish a game that can run for a lot longer. Overall, I still believe in the strength of the deck, and I think that has some potential, and I look forward to hearing what you all have to say down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Union Arena content, and hopefully, we'll see you in the next one.